Hey, Hilary, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. You know what? I'm doing good. Where t- i- i- it is strange times, I'd say. Like I'm really strange and weird, and yeah, a lot of stuff are going on. But like there's the era in which we're sitting is weird. You know, I was talking to my wife about how much we're losing track of time for the past 2 years. Like it
Mm.
really is hard to figure out what years, what year, whatever happened. Like it's so bizarre. Like it just like the twilight zone of that 24 months where we just got lost. Like it's just like, was this in 2019? Or what the, and so there's a lot of that going on. And so there, my first question is pretty much on where are you located in that on this big shiny planet, and as much as well of how are you with the pandemic going?
Well, I'm in Connecticut in the United States, and I live on the beach. So I have actually, I mean, don't hate me for saying this, but I've loved the pandemic because I got to stay home, look at the water, take walks. My
No
life,
tourists.
yeah, my life was very always rushing, 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 rushing. And it was like I could breathe. I didn't have to go anywhere. And it was like, this is a good life. Like I really got in touch with, I don't want to do that anymore. I still have to go to the office sometimes, but I mean, it's like, wait, shoes? Like
Yeah.
what shoes do I I'm like,
Pants.
do I even have
Pants.
shoes? Do I even have shoes? It's like,
That's what I mean by losing track of time. Like shoes,
it's so
pants. What the
stressful.
hell?
I have to wear clothes, like not my sneakers. I either wear sneakers, that's what we call them, sneakers or flip flops.
Yeah,
It's like shoes are like, and then what kind of socks do you wear with real shoes? I mean, it was really took a while the first time I had to
I
go.
know, I know. And on top of I'm nothing of an agoraphobe,
Yeah.
but since that shit hit the fan, when there's too much people, I there's it's not freaking out, but I feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There,
Well,
the-
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I forget. I forget because I'm just like here. And when I go out and I see people in masks, I'm like, oh yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. I forget. I forget. And then I'm like, wow, those are, I call them there's mask people. And then there's people like me. Like I wear it when I have to, but I just don't wear it. I don't like it. So it's like, I wonder, like, do the mask people have less COVID than the other people? That's what I would like to know. I doubt anybody's doing that study, but there's some people, they're so terrified. And
yeah.
that's like, after the first few months, I just said, I got to live my life. I can't have that stress.
How did the state of Connecticut behave with COVID? Like we've seen kind of both, pretty much both sides. Like we're my my boss is a guy from New York, and he's asking why I still live in a socialist state. Like because if I live in Quebec, like so, just like running joke with between me and my manager. But um, how as Connecticut, because like the U.S. has pretty much behaved like on the two swings, right? Like you saw Cali going just nuts on like the confinement and all that. Last time I saw what like the measure were really really tight. And then you saw Florida, which were really laxed on it. And how was Connecticut with it?
Well, we were one of the early ones to get it. So, I mean, we had the lockdown and then, no one even had masks. And then it was masks. And now it's kind of by town. Like if I go
Hmm.
to a gym in one town, you have to wear your mask. They're more, a little more relaxed. Like I take mine off in a spinning class so no one can see and no one comes and yells at me, which they were doing at the beginning. But other towns, you don't even have to wear it. Some people wear it anyway, but it's really by town now.
Wow.
And I think it's by person. There are some people, like I have a friend, she's a nursery school teacher, and she just said they weren't gonna, for the first time in 2 years, not have to wear masks. So I was like, congratulations. So I told this other woman who was taking care of my mom, and she was like, they're all gonna die. She was like, that's terrible. They're all gonna die. And I was like, wow, wow.
Yeah,
Like it's so
that's
people,
crazy.
I think it's really whatever your belief system is.
Yes, and one of the it's funny. I was talking with a medical doctor last week about like from day one, and I was actually arguing with my father about this weekend. But like from day one, I was worried about will mental health decline outweigh the
Mm,
measures and the confinement and the restrictions that we impose populations. Um, and if at some point someone at least sits down and looks at that, like there is definitely something around that, like, and that doctor, which I talked to last week, she's like, and she was not trying to be a conspirationist or like whatever, like or an anti-vaxxer or whatever. She was
mhm.
just saying from the past 2 years, I haven't heard or seen someone dying from COVID, but I've heard of 8 suicide that shouldn't have happened.
Whoa.
And it just confirmed something that is haunting me. Like there is something
Yeah.
about that I think always about. Like are we are and we're hearing a lot about like kind of the laxing of those strict rules right now. Like well in Quebec, but at the same time, there's a side of me that's just like, well, like as anyone sat down and looked at this, like looked at, is there, like are we sacrificing some of the mental health state of some people for a cold? Like I don't want to
Yeah.
minimize it, but like at the end of the day, it's a fucking cold. Like so,
Right.
yeah,
And I think it's caused divisiveness.
big time, big
Like
time.
my sister just said, we have a holiday coming up. Well, you have to be vaccinated, boosted, and get your test before you can come. Well, I'm not getting the booster. So I guess I'm not going, you know?
Yeah,
And okay. But that's their belief system. That's
yeah,
what they
it
feel they
is.
have to do. So I've just become an observer. I'm not going to argue with people. I've seen both sides.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. I just make it interesting rather than who's wrong and
And
who's right. Who I don't
and
know. No.
the fact that like you just mentioned that like you're not taking the booster means that you did your share. Like that. Like you did your share. Like so. There's a point where, and like I was saying that like I was arguing with my dad, which was kind of a, my father was laughing about it because it's like he's a widow, like from for a year now, a bit more than a
Mm,
year, and like he needs, like like he wants to have those like strong and tough conversation with me because
yeah,
like he's kind of missing that,
yeah,
and so he loved arguing about this, and like we had that big thing going with the convoy of truckers, like blocking the parliament and all that. Like there was a lot of stuff recently around like people being just freaking fed up about it, like, and so my father was just like anxiously, impatiently waiting for me on Saturday morning with my son. He's like, so what do you think of the convoy? Like, and I'm like, oh shit. We're- really? You want to get on the in the ring with me with that? He's like, yeah. I disagree. Like I'm like, okay, but okay, we're gonna have some fun. But it is um this is kind of the light version of it. Like we're seeing the as you said, like the divisive and strong opinionated version of it, which is almost violent. Like you see family fractions in families and fraction in friendships.
mhm,
And this again, like is something that um not worries me, but I do think a lot about this. Like there's where is it enough? Like I don't have the answer to the question, but like, and I wonder if anyone is asking this question.
But you know what I compared it to? And you're in Canada, but when we had the election,
hmm
Trump versus Biden, it was the same thing, just a different topic. You
Yep.
know, like if you were for Trump, I mean, they wouldn't talk to you. I mean, it was just, it was almost the same thing. So it's just a different, like,
Yeah.
topic.
Conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same divisiveness, and it's like, really? Because
And
someone doesn't believe that, you're a bad person. I mean, it's I just watch it and I'm fascinated by it in a sad way. We're
it
all
is,
humans. We're
and
all humans,
you're right, Hillary. Like
crazy.
there's something about like when it's such a binary opinion. Like there's no shades of gray in there.
No.
Like so if if you share and partay into the conversation that like, well, Trump, like maybe weird, but like there's some opinions or like that there's stuff that I don't disagree necessarily with. Like, and all of a sudden you're just a fucking fascist, and like you're definitely, like there's
Yeah,
really is something around. um so I guess you're listening to Alex Jones. I'm like, no, what the fuck are you talking?
that's what we have here. I guess you're watching Fox News or something. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't even watch TV because I can't stand to watch it, so I don't watch the news. It's depressing. It's
Like,
scary.
so
Yeah.
are you against the mask? So I guess you're an anti-vaxxer then. I'm like, no, like that. No, that's not what I'm
Ah,
saying. And
yeah,
like, can we keep a bit of the right to question and challenge things? I mean, like, please, that like,
yeah,
it's a freedom. It is, like some of the fundamentals freedom. Like to are allowed to be allowed to question. I
yeah.
just I I just wanna ask a question here, like, that's it, please. Alright, um, back to regular programming. Like, it's kind of my running joke, like, every for the past 8, 9 months, like, I've been asking that question because for me, it is, this is crazy times. Like, it is
Mhm,
it is unique, crazy, and I see my 6-year-old growing into that. Like, and it, like, you have no other way but to worry if like, if you have just a sense of or the shadow of a brain. Like, you cannot not kind of worry about it. Like, so
mhm.
that's why I ask those questions, because I want to be sure that like, you could have told me that Connecticut is just so much not into that like, maybe I would have moved to Connecticut, but God knows. uh,
Depends which town. Depends which town and who your neighbors are.
um as I do pretty much on every episode, like, I ask my guests to rewind the kind of the cassette tape of their life story. And like, I'm gonna ask you, Brittany, to Hillary, sorry, but to bring me back to some of the early memories that you got that defined you, or like that has had that has had an impact on your life. Like, when I talk to addicts, like, it's either their own first use, or it is like the good old drunken uncle that like has made an impact on them, right? Like
Mm.
the funny guy that like tried backflipping and knocked his head off, or you know what I'm saying. uh, but yeah, like, so where would you bring me back to?
Well, okay, so it sounds crazy, but when I was very, very little, because I know this is where I made some decisions about life, right? I
Yep.
thought I was going to this concert with my sister. I was little. I was like 2, and I was really excited, and I go to get into the car, and they said, "Oh, no, no, you wait here. We're coming. We're just going to get milk. We'll come back for you." Fine. They go. Of course, they went to see it. I wasn't going. I was never going. I thought I was going, and so I was upset. I go into my mother crying, and she says, "Don't be upset. Just don't be upset. Stop crying." Okay, so that's where I decided there was something wrong with me. that I'm not supposed to be upset and I am upset. So I decide I can't be myself. That's what I decided. Now, I've done a lot of work since then. And there are other incidents where you make decisions, you don't know you made them, but the life alters, right? Well, if I can't be myself, that's kind of sad, right? Who am I
Yeah.
supposed to be? I tried everybody, like who am I supposed to be? That's where I became people pleasing and good and had to be good at everything and all that because I couldn't be myself. So you try to make up something else. So anyway,
So you
I
become a chameleon by, like from that
yeah,
day on, you kind of become a chameleon.
yeah, yeah, like I was good. Didn't speak up, you know. And then there were other things that happened and you make decisions, but um I've been doing some work. I've done a lot of like transformational programs and where you kind of peel the onion of with all these decisions that
Yep.
you've made, which you end up living in a very small box because your brain says, don't do that. Remember what happened last time and don't do that, and remember you got excited and then you were disappointed. You know, so then anything that happens, if I get my hopes up, I'm going to the concert and it doesn't happen. It's like, see, you're stupid. You shouldn't have been expecting that. You know what people do, like so so I've been doing a lot of transformational work and I just did some other work, which is deconstructing the ego. And you look at, certain decisions that were made where your kind of ego was born. And your ego is a very destructive force trying to keep you safe, right? So when I was doing this work, we were looking at the 2-year-old thing and I was like, well, I can't be myself. And she's like, no, your mother didn't say that. She just said, don't be upset. That's what mothers say. She never said, you can't be yourself. Well, I was
Yeah.
blaming her for 60 years, punishing her. I mean, in my own way, like mad all the time. And, you know, I'm like, she never said that. That's what my little brain made up that I can't be myself. I can. I can. I mean, it's crazy, but that's the way our brain works. So, when I say, when we were talking earlier, I wasn't an addict per se, but I didn't want to feel those feelings. Now, I don't know, have you ever heard of Gabor Mate?
No.
He I don't know where I heard him. I heard him on some podcast, and what he says is that sensitive children, like I was very sensitive. I got hurt a lot, by things. So he says sensitive children become the addicts because they were told, don't be mad, don't be upset, don't be this, don't be that. So they can't be who they are. And when they numb it, it's the first time they feel good. They don't have those sad feelings or they don't have those uncomfortable feelings. And when I was reading that, I was like, wow, yeah, that makes sense because I would take things very personally and I wasn't supposed to be upset.
Yeah.
So what do I do with it? Oh, I'll eat some more chips and nachos or have a margarita. That'll and then I wouldn't think about it, or whatever. That was my way of numbing, you know.
In terms of your upbringing, I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing that from that point on of that event that happened at 2, so school started and, like creating friendships and, like kind of, like the usual and, like it's a question that I do ask a lot of my addicts friends, but like the second relation that you have with authority, like outside your parent is school teachers, right?
Teacher,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
so I'm guessing that your relation with them was like the like just a follow through of what happened when you were 2.
Well, I was a very good student.
Pleasing.
Yes. Did
Yeah.
everything they said. I didn't want anyone to yell at me. I didn't that was another thing. I avoided being criticized or yelled at or anything. So I had to be good. I didn't speak up. I mean, you know, it has it affected my relationships? Oh, yes. Oh,
With
yeah.
friendship as well, right? As a
Yeah,
kid.
and
I
I
mean, like, because
become like a doormat,
yeah. Oh,
you
and
know?
a doormat, and at the same time, I'm guessing that you weren't the first one to raise their hand, or like to like front stage and trying to be like the star of the show, or
That's a good question. Well, I was a good student, so I would like that was how I compensated was by being good at things.
yep,
So I was good at things. Was I way out there? No, probably not, because I didn't want to stand out too far.
exactly. You didn't
Yeah.
want to, like
So I would go out so far,
yeah,
but I was afraid, I cared about what people thought. So yeah, stay in the mix. I wouldn't go
yeah,
too far out.
exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Where like if we'd ask people like much later, hey, what about Hillary? They would say, I don't know. Like she was doing her thing. She was good at class, but like you weren't the
Well,
brat or the
I was liked because I
yeah,
was
no
a
doubt, no
troublemaker.
doubt. But
So
no,
I
but
wasn't mean, like
no,
I was never
exactly.
mean. Yeah.
No, but what I mean by that, Hillary, is that like sometimes like I remember some of the kind of outstanding characters, right? Like in class, and
Yeah.
like for elementary school and then high school, um, and I was no way one of these guys. Like I was good at class as well, but like the less you talked about me, the better I was. Like so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want people to talk about, like, hey, Alex, no, don't. And same for orals, for example. Like I didn't want to be, like even though I was good at that, like I didn't want to make like I wasn't much of a clown. Um,
You didn't
yeah,
want to be
no,
noticed? Did you not want to be
not
noticed?
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. And I was so fucking shy.
Oh.
Like yeah, I'm like so shy. Like it's looking back, like that, this is probably what like mortified, like just scared shitless of like the opposite sex, for example. Like just fuck, like it was uh, pretty much. Like it's so weird because when I grew up, I some people would tell me, oh, but this girl were all falling for you. I was like, what? No. And like I've
Mm.
never seen the signs, never, like I wasn't, like I wasn't like an ugly kid, or like there was nothing that, kind of the opposite. Like I was like a good looking kid and a bit of a dork though, but like just like yeah,
So what
and
was your conversation, or you just didn't notice them?
I
You
would
just
fall in love like with everyone, right? Like like every girl at school, I would be just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and it's so funny because when I was a teenager, I had a good friend of mine, and I remember we would go in clubs, and yeah, like for me, this is the best of like the best way to kind of you know um, say that in as few words as possible. But like I would tell him, can you imagine the worst that could happen would be that she says no, and he said, what? The worst that could happen is that she says no? I don't fucking care. Next. And for me, it would crush me. For
Mm-mm.
him, it was just like, okay, good, next. So for me, it was really the worst. And for him, just like, okay, like let's move on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so, like you go through like a couple of rejections where like you become like the best friend, and like you don't want that, because you're really falling for, we're talking about teenagers, right? Like
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
but all that to say that like I didn't want to be like the kind of the I didn't want to be on stage, like I just wanted to be a bit apart. So what were your education aspiration at that time? Like you go into high school, and then what was your aspiration for college?
Yeah, so I went to high school, and then I went to an Ivy League, Ivy League, and I went to and I was there University of Pennsylvania. I went to liberal arts, and then they had a business school there. So I transferred in because I didn't like writing papers. So it happened to be one of the best business schools in the country. So it was kind of a good move. kind of for the wrong reason, you know? So I graduated from there and I went to Washington, DC, and I worked with consulting. I did consulting. We got to go to Germany. That was fun. And then I ended up going on to Wall Street from Washington to, I transferred to New York, went on Wall Street, and that was fun. Um, so I had a good time until I worked for Drexel Burnham. Are you too young to have heard of them?
Mm,
Junk bonds. Anyway,
no,
they were a big company. We had a ball there. It was just a really fun time. And then they went bankrupt one day. So we
bank.
were all out of jobs. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up
Are,
getting another job, but it was never as much fun as Drexel. That was a great time. Yeah.
were you still? I'm guessing yes. The answer is yes. But are you still pleasing people? Are you still the chameleon? Like kind of like fitting in and because I guess like if you go from liberal art to business, that's kind of
Yeah.
just like it pops in my face how much that's too fucking opposite side of personality, right? Like like it.
Well, I was interested in it. I didn't do like accounting. I didn't like that. I didn't like economics. I did like the system stuff, which was logical. And because I was good with people, I was a good listener. I never spoke up, never was bad.
Yeah,
I learned how to talk to them and find out the answers to stuff. So it was good. I used my skills. I was smart and I could listen. They liked me because I never, you know,
yeah,
I never said boo. Who wouldn't
yeah.
like that? I was just there smiling and answering and asking questions like they got to talk. And I had friends. It wasn't like I was hiding. I had a fun side. Um I had a fun side. Like you have like a way that you have like I could be a victim, but I could also be fun. I could also be the life of the party. I could also be very successful because I was smart and I worked hard. So, you have a way to compensate for it, you
Absolutely.
know? Yeah.
And those are waves, right? You don't always feel I don't maybe out of place is a bit strong, but like
Yeah.
you don't always feel like that. Like you don't
Yeah.
always feel like you put the masks and like you're just smiling and doing
Right.
fitting like fitting in persona. Um
Yeah.
and like the people like, are mostly loving and accepting and
Mhm.
caring.
Yeah.
um so like you can truly be yourself around most of the people, I'd say. Like there are
Yeah.
yeah.
The one thing, if I really look, where I had a little bit of a problem, but I didn't see it at the time, was in my relationships. I think when I was younger, they were okay. But then as I got older, it seemed that the people that I was attracting were not available. And they would lie about it, and I would believe them. And, they were either married or in a relationship or, just lying. Um, and I didn't really see it as a pattern until later. And sometimes I still attract that. And it's kind of like, oh, what is that? Like, why do I still, you know? And I don't know. Like I'm still looking at it. It probably has to do with not speaking up. Like I don't say, "Hey, that's not okay." It's like, "Oh, well, it's okay."
Poor you.
Like I'll put up with it. Yeah. Cuz I don't want to let go or yeah. So that's one way that that whole thing has shown itself. And even in my marriage, he was great when we were engaged. He was like my best friend. And then as soon as we got married, it was like, what happened here? Didn't want to talk to me. So it was like, how did I attract that? And
Yeah.
so then there's that victim side that goes, well, it's my fault. So yeah, it's like victim versus fine, one or the other.
So you get married. um
Yeah.
you actually you I guess you start by getting engaged, but like where do you find that guy? Like where like where do you guys meet? Like is it with that job and business?
No, I was taking transformational courses. I don't know if you've ever heard of Landmark. At the time, it was Landmark Education. Then it became Landmark Worldwide. At the time, it was a Landmark Education. And I was doing a lot there because that was the first time where it was like I could be myself there. Like I learned how to speak up. I learned that, wow, look at, look at these decisions I've made as a child. And so it was a technology for uncovering those decisions. So I met him there. He was leading seminars and I was just like they call it assisting, but it was volunteering. So that's where I met him. So, he was leading seminars. I thought, wow, this guy's powerful and stuff like that. And we're
So I
still friends.
guess what initiated was it like a coincidence that you happened to take these courses that made you realize that, because what I was about to ask you, like, so you were already engaged and
No, 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 no. No, one of my friend's brothers had taken it. He told her about it. Um, and when she kept having relationship problems and he was like, just if you kept having drowning, I would tell you to take swimming lessons. You keep having trouble,
yep.
so take this course. So after 4 years she finally did. And when I saw what happened to her, you know, well, this is how she won't listen to this, but she was kind of a righteous bitch. And when she came out, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I haven't been understanding." And I was like, "Whoa, whatever did this to you, sign me up because I can't believe this." And I just went and signed up. I didn't even care what it was. If it could do that to her, she was nice. And I loved her, but she wasn't very compassionate, she was very judgmental. So
And
that's
so
why I
without
just went. Yeah.
knowing, really, you engage into um helping yourself
Yeah.
without really knowing, and then you meet that guy. Like, were you already discovering that, like, kind of pleasing everyone side of yourself, or
Um No, I don't think so. I think I didn't think well, I had made one of the decisions I had made when I was little was that I was unlovable. I didn't know that.
Mm,
And my parents never we didn't say love. And so in the first program, they were like, "Well, some of you are going to have to call your parents." And so my hand went up. My father had said something to me. Oh God. It seems so crazy now. But so he had said when I was like how old was I about? I was like 32. When I was in my 20s, I was down living in Washington. I think I gained 5 pounds. Anyway, my father said he was ashamed to look at me. And so I decided he was ashamed of me. I and so, you know, I wasn't that heavy. I mean, really, it was 5 pounds. It wasn't a lot. But so that was a big thing. So I called him up and I asked him, do you love me? And he was like, of course, why are you asking? I said, are you proud of me? He goes, of course. And I was like, oh. And so I told him what he had said. And he's like, oh, Hillary, why are why are you holding on to that? La, 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 and I was like, well, because I'm human, I guess. I didn't know at the time, but I was just human. And so, that was a big deal, that thinking that my father was genuine, which again, our brains make it up. Our brains make up the meaning. He just wanted me to be happy. He thought if I lost the weight, but
and
what
yeah,
what
our
the
brain
leader of the
extrapolates,
course,
like your brain extrapolates and elaborates on something, like,
and we
was it
think it's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like, was it a nice thing to say? Fuck no, like, so, like, definitely not, like, but at the same time, um there's
Right. It was
definitely a
because
gap.
he yeah,
you,
because
you
he
know
loved me. I mean, that's what
yeah,
the
and there,
leader
like,
was
there's a
saying. Why do
gap
you think
there.
he said it? Because
There's
he
a
loves you.
generation gap as well, like, where like,
Yeah.
where I'm guessing it, like that. Our parents and grandparents had much tougher skin than probably we do, like, because,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they could be told, like, they could be told stuff that, like, will probably would crush us.
Right. Right.
uh, at the same time, their relation with even themselves and their own emotions are not the same. Like my father is 72 right now. Yeah, 73 this year. Um, and he just started getting in touch with kind of his emotions, which is all mixed up right now.
Wow.
So sometimes he can talk to me and
Mhm.
be to the verge of crying all the time. I'm like, it's all good, that but
Yeah,
it's always like
right.
it's always in shock. It's always like, but he'll never. It's so funny because I one of the birthday gift I bought him was some shows of a like a folk singer in Quebec that I my own memory is that we listened to that guy a lot when we were doing some home renovation at our camp house, and so for me when hear that guy sing, it makes me think of these weekends that we spend together doing this, like, so
Mhm.
whatever it means for him,
Right.
um but he's he's kind of more of a revolutionary folk singer in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, and so there's definitely something to appreciate that, like I bought like the whole platinum package, like we're going to be sitting like right in front, and we're going to we're going to have the backstage passes, and we're going to shake the guy's hand, and like so like it's the old thing. And so this weekend, my wife and I were talking about this. So like my wife's like, "Hey, that's this summer." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And she's like, "Yeah, you should like just pick him up like really early in the morning and go have lunch, and like just enjoy the day with your dad." I'm like, "Yeah, big time." Like I'm just gonna do like a road trip because it's a few miles from home, so I'm gonna go pick him up early, and we're gonna just drive there, and um, and she's like, "You should do spa with your father. Like, just like go to the spa." And my father is terrorized of, like just a massage, for example, like, and I'm like, "Oh, that could be good." Like just pay for the massage, like just to see his reaction. It's like, "Hey, bring your swim trunks and like in a bag. We're gonna go somewhere, Dad." Like just to see his face, and like, so I paid for an hour and a half massage. Enjoy, like just to see his face.
Yeah.
And I don't know yet if I want to do this because I don't know what his reaction will be, like, um, but it's just to say that, like, I've done this countless times, right? Go to the spa and get a massage and take care of myself. Um, my father doesn't even take a shoulder rub.
Mm.
He's like, "Ugh," like get off me, like, and
Yeah.
so it's engraved and in the as his most profound roots, like you're cannot be better served than by yourself, right? Like kind of the old
Mm.
proverb.
Mhm.
My father has this, like, it is the root of everything he is. So like, so he's gonna rub his own back, like, get the fuck out of me, like, like
I don't
he's
think
not.
you should pay. Did you already pay for him?
No, I'm not there yet, but
I don't think
like,
so.
it's just to say that, like,
But
he's
some people don't like it. I know people, I mean, I love you
I
could
love it.
anyone, and they're like, "Nope." I'm like, "No?" Yeah, they just don't like it.
Yeah,
I find it odd, but some people don't. Yeah.
I know. And so, um getting back to that fiance, you
Yeah.
meet that guy, you fall for him. Like, he becomes kind of your best friend and your best buddy. You get engaged, and that kind of keeps going until you two get married. What happens next?
Well, we had 2 kids, so I was kind of busy with them. When your kids are little, you're busy with them. So I kind of just, it was my dream, right? Get married, have kids. I was a little older, so I was happy, right? Now, I start I thought cuz I started gaining weight, that was my only problem. All I had to do was lose the weight. So I would lose it, it'd come back, lose it, come back. And then, up until that time when I was telling you about when I wrote my book, um, well, I wrote my book about it, that when I finally started losing it, I realized I had been numbing myself, telling myself I was happy. I mean, I'm fine, you know? Like what happened? I don't know. That he made some decision about marriage where all of a sudden it was I was the fault of everything he couldn't do. And it was just something like some brain pattern he had from when his father, his father left his mother when he was 4, couldn't go, couldn't live that, it's all brain patterns. I mean, we've talked about it since. Um, he kind of went off and did his own thing with my son who played hockey. I was home with my daughter and I just rationalized it. Well, this is what you got, until again, like I stopped eating and numbing myself and realized, wow, I don't like my life. And I tried to talk to him. I didn't plan on getting divorced. I didn't want to get divorced, but he he wouldn't listen. I mean, if I tried to say something, um he he would pick on my words and we would argue about the word I picked instead of ever having the conversation I wanted to have.
Hmm.
So there were money issues. We had different ways of dealing with money. That was one issue. One issue was sex. He didn't want it. That was an issue. And then the other thing was he just basically didn't listen to me and did whatever he wanted. And there was no respect and we didn't do anything together. So there were those three things I didn't have much to hold on to, and then um, it was like, now looking back, could I have done something if I was more aware? Maybe, looking back is, what is it? What do you say? Hindsight. Um, maybe I could have dealt with it, but I was either a victim or I was trying to get my own way, and neither way worked. So eventually I just said I have to get out of here. And it was after
Thinking
20 years. Well, it was after 20 years. It wasn't like I gave up early. But and
not
now,
only and
we use
well,
apologize.
I wouldn't say giving, yeah, and I wouldn't say giving up, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, was there like kind of a side of you that thought that, because you talked about, like thinking that losing weight would solve, like the how you felt inside
Yeah,
was
I thought
so.
that if I lost weight, I'd be happy. Like that was my only thing.
And
So it
so
was
what?
an easy fix. It was an easy fix. Way
Yep.
easier than thinking, "Oh, I don't like my life. What am I going to do?" So that was a way of not being real.
Dealing with that,
I had
yeah.
no idea I was even upset about my life because I was so numb to it.
And was getting a divorce falling into kind of that same category where, like you felt that if you, like if you divorced, you'd feel happier after it?
Yeah, I mean, the process started before I got divorced. Like I started, I mean, and again, it's all in my book. So I had forgotten who I was because and when I would joined a writing class, I wrote my book and then I joined a writing class and I would read my chapters and they were like, "Whoa, he was gaslighting you." I never heard that term, but he it's it's hard to explain, but I ended up feeling like I was crazy. I just felt crazy because he would just, if I would say, "Hey, he liked to spend money," I would look, "How are you going to pay for that?" "What do you mean? Like, what's wrong with you? You're always upset." So he would always say, "You're always upset about something. You're just the most upset person I know." I am. After a while, it's like, I am. Instead of ever dealing with the financial situation, I'm now dealing with, am I just crazy? You know?
Yeah.
So once I got out and I got to, I did get divorced. I turned my finances around. I mean, I'm set for retirement. He can do whatever he wants. I didn't want to keep borrowing money. I mean, that was terrifying to me. So I did. I turned my finances around. I started feeling good about myself again. Like, I'm not crazy. I can trust myself, so I was happier. It wasn't just like a panacea. I didn't want to get divorced, but we're still close. We're still a family. We still do stuff. My son was here. So we're still a family. We're just not legally together. I'm not dating him. I mean, there's no romance, but we've worked it out so that
Yep.
we're very pleasant. And we have great kids. We did a good job. You know, they've done, this transformational work too. We can say anything to each other. They blame me for stuff, blah 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 blah, and then we get over it. So
Yeah.
it's
Classic.
it's great. I mean,
Classic.
I have a great life. I can see that. I can see now that I'm blessed. My family was amazing. I stopped blaming my mother finally, even my father, before he passed away. I gave up all that crap about him and forgave, we just got close and, I miss him. It's been 5 years. I miss him. So I can see now I'm not always stuck in the brain. I mean, I have the ego attacks sometimes, but I can see I can be like in this other world of gratefulness. I can see what I do have. I can practice speaking up. I mean, I'm still a little bit afraid sometimes, but I'm practicing and I'm doing all these things like my YouTube and my blog to say, I'm basically a pretty negative person. And I tried to fix that. I finally said, you know what? I'm negative. Okay. Hey, I can tell stories. I can tell funny stories. I can entertain people. I can inspire them because I'm real. And I'll say, hey, you know, my husband didn't want sex with me. That was pretty lousy, but maybe someone else's doesn't. And they're not talking about it.
Yep.
Do you know, like by me talking about it, someone else might say, hey, you know what? I'm going through that too. Thank you. I don't feel so alone anymore. So I've come a long way. And I think while I didn't want to get divorced, I think I, I kind of had to save my soul, by doing that. So,
Totally understand.
yeah.
Um, so you said that you had started working on yourself like even before the divorce. What are
Yeah.
these steps that you took to to really kind of get out of your shell, like and be
Yeah.
confident and be yourself.
Well, I think one of the things like by accident, and I'm actually writing another book and I'm putting these steps in it. The first thing was by accident, I was at the hairdresser's and she was running late, so she gave me some wine. It was warm wine, but I drank it anyway. And so when she said, "How are you?" I started crying. She's like, "What's going on?" And I started saying, Mark doesn't want to have sex with me, and that I was sure was my fault. But she's like, "What? What do you mean it's your fault?" So by accidentally blurting out what I was thinking, which I thought was true, she got to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! This is not your fault." And I'm like, "It's not? No, men like sex. Like if he doesn't want sex, that's not your problem." And I was like, "Oh, like that one thing." So like that's the first thing I would say is get when it's in your head, it seems true and it's running your life. But when you can say it out loud, you can actually look at it, examine it,
Yep.
or talk to someone about it. And then I was like, really? So that was like, wow. And then, I was at a lunch with some friends and they were talking about all sorts of stuff. And I was like, we don't have the money for that. We have so much debt. Like, I don't want to keep spending. And they were like, whoa. And I, again, started crying because I'm a crier. And they were like, well, have you talked to someone? Did you ever think of getting divorced? I was like, no. But it's like, I started talking. So that was the first thing was talking to people and not keeping it in my own head, feeling like I was the only one that felt that way. So that was like the first big thing. And then, once I realized, wow, I don't really have a life, the kids were getting older. They didn't need me anymore. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing things that I enjoy. I started doing like little things like Zumba or what else? I started doing a step class, which was really fun. I was like, wow. I started getting more books out of the library. singing to songs, dancing, and I started doing things that I enjoyed and bringing joy back to my life. So little by little, then I opened up my own bank account. Then I was like, started saving money. I didn't have to be a victim to what he was doing. I stopped being a victim. I started taking my power back. We were working and I was kind of resigned about it. And then I met someone who had read this book. It was called Success Principles. And in it, you set goals and you did affirmations and what was the other thing? Visualizations. And so I was like, wow, I used to do all this stuff. Like, what the hell happened to me? Right? Oh, I was an athlete. I forgot about that. I did a triathlon. So I started doing the things that I had been doing before I got married when I just thought I was crazy and it was all my fault. So I got back to my own joy. I got back to my own self. I remembered I was an athlete. Wow, I was smart. Forgot about that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, where did that girl go? And again, that's why I wrote the book, because I was like, if this happened to me, it might have happened to someone else. What
And
the
and
heck
you
happened?
you wrote the book after getting divorced, right?
No, I wrote the book while it was all happening. I wrote the book. It's I wrote the book, and then I was like, "Oh, what do you do with the book?" And then I realized I didn't know how to write. So it took me 7 years. I took writing classes, learned how to write, kept reading these chapters, and I wasn't getting divorced yet. I really wasn't. It took me a long time. It took me a long time. I kept going to lawyers. I went to these, I would go to the free half hours after I'd had that lunch with a friend. It took me a while. I went to therapy. I didn't like her. She was talking to me like a victim. Well, I was being a victim, a confused victim. So I was like, thank you. I forgot about that. Fired her. And then, just kept, I don't know. I think I went back to the transformational classes, and then I kept talking to lawyers, and then one lawyer, they were like, well, you can't afford to leave. And so they wanted to charge me, $15,000 for a retainer. I'm like, see ya. So I would keep doing these free half hours until one lawyer was like, hey, he's 65. You could do this. You can do this yourself. And so I did. Yeah.
And I guess your book did your book go to publishing
Yeah.
with the divorce? Or
No,
yeah.
no, no. It had nothing to do with the divorce. I don't even talk about the divorce in the book until the
Okay.
very end, like the last page. So people don't know until the last page that I actually got divorced. Because it really
Wow.
was about me. It was about
Sure.
me
No doubt.
getting back to who I was before I got married and kind of forgot. I mean, it really was like, wow, I used to be an athlete. Like, I had gotten to the point where I didn't remember anything good about myself.
And I'm guessing that your husband at the time must be freaking out seeing you kind of exploding at like right in front of him.
Well,
No?
he was like, what are you doing? Why are you putting makeup on to go to the gym? Who? No, because they're nice to me. They listen to
Zoom
me.
Zumba, what?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's where I would go to have fun. I would go to the gym. I knew people there. They were nice to me. I was a person there. I wasn't a problem there like I was at home. I
Yeah.
wasn't this problem. Yeah, yeah. It was a fun
And
ride.
so I asked that question in some of my last question to my guests,
Yeah,
but I want to ask you right now, what is a daily healthy habit to keep what you found and to keep that, like that authenticity and, like that, like being true to yourself and being true to your life and in your daily life? What is a daily spiritual, mental, physical diet that you need to keep to always stay true to what you just talked about?
yeah. I work out. I work out every day. So that's just
The
what I
physical
do.
piece. Yep.
Yeah. The mental, when I wake up, I'm in a something's wrong. You know, now if I'm early enough, I'll put on a meditation which talks about abundance and our true self. And so that's one way to get back, like, don't listen to this guy. You know, your brain is not your friend. Don't listen. So that's one thing. If I don't do that, there are calls I get on where they're like creative, generative, creating your life instead of the default, so I fill it with that. I take courses, I'm on Zooms with people. I mean, it's not one thing, like if I get stuck, what I've been doing is practicing how to get unstuck. So I'll write or I'll listen to a podcast in the car. I'll listen to anything other than my brain. I think that's really it. Get out of my own brain. Sometimes, I was doing this thing where you just sit, but I haven't been doing that lately. But it's really to get out of my brain. If I listen to someone else, I'm out of my own brain, you know,
Hmm.
or I have some friends now that I can talk to. I'll text them, can you talk or whatever. I used to, I had a coach where this is kind of crazy, but when I was really upset, I would call his voicemail and he never picked it up. So I would, like one time I was upset. I was supposed to go on a trip with my daughter and she said she wasn't going and I'd already paid. And so I recorded 10 voicemails, but I kept deleting them. So I would just keep talking and I can't believe it. Delete. And I would just keep going until I got it all out. And then I was like, all right, I could do this. I could do that until I can see a plan, until I can see some action I can take besides being in the upset. I just get it out somehow, either by writing or talking or something. So yeah, that's probably the best thing.
And so, what is the book called?
The book is called The Second Piece of French Toast. It's pink. And yeah, I self-published it and it's a memoir and it's found on Amazon. Yeah. And then I also have a course for anyone else who's stuck. And it's an 8-week course. It's called Getting Unstuck with Hilary. And it's a 5-minute video and a 5-minute assignment. And then we have an hour where we get together. And I'm telling you, you get unstuck. So you pick whatever area, and it's very cool. I need to start it again because I get stuck when I'm when I'm not in it. I'm going to probably start it in March. Yeah,
Well,
again.
Hillary, it was awesome talking with you. Like it's I you make me think that like this is the objective of it was not initially, but the objective of that podcast is to um talk with as many minds as possible, right? Like
Mm,
and to discuss with as many minds as possible because I want to like it's pretty egocentric, but like I'm doing this for myself first.
right.
But
Cool.
like it is really about like expanding my horizon and expanding my my mind to other like because I come from like the addiction world, right, where like especially in Quebec, like we're pretty stuck into a bit of a box of the 12 steppers.
Mm,
um as I spoke more and more with people around at least North America and then Europe, I realized that like there were more than one ways where people could get sober. Um, as I expand the conversation to other as like horizons as yours, like today, um, it makes me grow myself. Like, and I appreciate that a lot, and like I know that my audience do too, um, and it was great. Like you have a phenomenal smile. I can feel through that remote conversation that like you yeah that joy that you have is contagious. You can hear it. You definitely can hear it, and feel it. Like and it like that being genuine and authentic is something that like you don't have to say. Like, hey, I'm authentic. Like you feel it and you know it. Like
yeah.
so for all these reasons, like it was a blast talking with you today, Hillary. where can people find you?
They can find me. I have a website, gettingrealwithhilary.com, and it's Getting Real with Hilary with one L, HILARY.com. And on there, I have, my blog is on there, my book. If they want to get in
Your
touch,
podcast.
my podcast is new. That's called Get Real and Get Free. And actually, the first episode is a guy named John Stack who, well, he was an addict, but he lost his son to a fentanyl poisoning, and that is an incredible, incredible story. That was my first episode. Yeah, but he's very inspiring. You know, if anybody wants to go hear him, it's just I can't listen to it without like, But
No doubt.
he's very real. Yeah. So that's my podcast, Get Real and Get Free. But if you go to the website, and I have a newsletter, you can subscribe to that as well. So I do, I'm always doing stuff. And if it can help one person, great. And it's something I enjoy is the writing and just entertaining people, but hopefully inspiring them so that they can learn from my experiences. So yeah, but thank you, Alex. This has been really fun.
It
Appreciate
was
your
great.
back, laid back vibe, baby.
Yeah, relax. That's my it is my man cave alone time with me moment, and like I
Yeah.
really really enjoy it. And yeah, it was a blast having a conversation with you, having a chat with you. And for people listening, in the description note of the episode, you can find all of the link that Hilary will provide me, so you can find both the book, and you're going to be on the newsletter, subscribing to the newsletter to hear about that second book that she talked about, and the classes, and the podcast. So add on to the podcast description. You're going to find all the links there. Again, Hilary, it was a pleasure having you on, and I hope like there's not much I can wish you but the best. Like that like when you find truth in your life, um, I mean, there's no other way. Like you cannot go, you cannot fake it anymore. Like
Right.
you're screwed.
Well, I still have those ego attacks, but it's like, oh crap. There's another one.
Yeah, yeah, but like
Uh,
as we mature, we cut the bullshit quicker. Like, and
yeah.
that's the beauty of that. And so I'm gonna just wish that you can more quickly cut the bullshit in your life then.
Thank you. Well,
Thanks to you,
one of
Hillary.
what can I just say one thing? Sometimes
Yep.
when I'm upset, like today, I went to a friend of mine who had canceled on me, and I was like, I was really upset, and I was, I said, "Can you just tell me how you work your schedule? Like, why does this happen?" And he's like, "Oh, it's in my head." He forgot that he had this airport run, and I was like, "Okay, all right," because I think I'm really stupid and for even making a plan with you anymore or an appointment. He's like, no, you're very important. I just forgot. So it's like going back. That's another technique that I didn't mention is checking it out with the other person who you're upset with to say, tell me how that happened. Because my brain is going nuts right now and
Yeah.
it's ugly in here. And then I was like, okay, thank you. And then I was free. It was incredible after torturing myself for 48 hours, right? So that's
Yeah.
another technique I'll throw in for free, Alex.
Thank you, Hillary. I wish you
Thank
the
you so
best.
much. All
Take
right.
care.
Awesome. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.